My name is Kristen Thompson. I'm one of the old school FMC folks, and I'm always thrilled to be part of the Future of Music Policy Summit. Lots of other folks in this room are also Summit veterans, and you'll be familiar with the various panels and presentations that we've had over the years that highlight not only the policy discussions and the debates that are ongoing, but also the new innovations and the tools and the services that artists may be able to use to give them, sort of a better toolkit to, create and to sort of engage with their fans. And this year we wanted to focus on a spotlight on some of the tools that have attempted to solve specific problems in the music industry. Sometimes it's tough to predict what will be useful to a diverse community, and let's admit that some of the tools that are useful to some musicians are completely irrelevant to others, and it's important for us to remember that. But we have there's tools that meet very specific needs in terms of how they do business and grow audiences, and our panel today reflects the diversity of approaches, and I'm excited to hear them make the case about why their particular service can benefit artists. And more importantly, we want to get their sense of how innovation and technology might aid in greater sustainability for artists. And I'll hand things off to my fellow board member, Emily White, manager and guru extraordinaire, who will be moderating this panel called Innovation in the Musician's Toolbox. Good morning.
Good morning. How's everyone doing today? All right, ready to dig in. So our first panel today is called In Service, Innovation in the Musician's Toolbox. And as Kristen mentioned, my name's Emily White. I run a management and consulting firm called Whitesmith Entertainment. We're based in New York and Los Angeles, and I also run a startup called Dream Fuel that is crowdfunding for athletes. Musicians depend on technology now more than any other time in history. Platforms abound for creating, promoting, and distributing music, for planning tours, engaging fans, raising funds, and selling music, merchandise, concert tickets, and more. Mostly, artists care about two things. Can they get on the platform, and will it make life easier? They also care about a third thing, revenue, which is definitely something we're going to be talking about today. Future of Music Coalition has assembled experts to discuss what it takes to deliver a truly musician-friendly service with an eye towards productive partnerships. To kick off the summit, we're going to talk about apps and services for managing money, tours, websites, fan relationships, commerce, and everything in between, ensuring their service is actually benefiting musicians. So I'd love for each of the panelists to kind of give you guys the elevator pitch of what their platform is all about. So that's the first thing we're going to delve into. And I'm really thrilled that we have Randy Nichols on the panel because he is a manager. So he can, he'll tell you about what he does. He works with a few platforms, but can also give some opinions on what's working for his artists and what's useful and what isn't. So Randy?
Cool. Well, I kind of wear a few different hats because, as she said, I'm an artist manager, but I also advise for a few different startups. And you want me to focus on the startups for right now?
For now, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so the startups that I'm involved in right now, one of them happens to be this guy's company, so I'm not going to talk about them. Let him do that. But the other company is called Bands in Town, which is an artist services platform that allows artists to better manage and distribute their tour dates. Then we have another side of the platform, which I won't focus on as much, which is a discovery platform to help fans discover concerts of when bands are playing in their town. On the artist side of the platform, it has a tool that allows you to embed a widget on your Facebook page or app, whatever we call those, the Facebook app, and then a plugin on your artist website that allows you to display your dates and dynamically updates in one system on every site that you put this plugin on. And we also have a deal with Google where you Google an artist's name that's within the Bands in Town system now. It'll automatically show up at the top of the Google search. And a couple of just key points on it. We have about 14 million users who are getting updates on these tour dates from a band. So when you add a new tour date, it automatically emails every one of those fans within those 14 million people and lets them know that you're coming to town. Unlike, you know, if we look at a platform like Facebook, which we may delve into more later, I don't know, but they hit like maybe 16, 15% of your fan base. When you update something in Bands in Town, all your fans know instantly that you're doing something.
Quick follow-up on that. How do all of your fans know? That's a pretty bold statement.
All of your fans within those 14 million fans that are using the platform know via email.
Cool. So next we have Ben Brannen from AtVenu, and my background is actually in tour management, and I can say this is a really, really useful tool. So Ben, fill us in on what AtVenu is all about.
Sure, thanks. AtVenu is all about tour merchandise. I spent several years tour managing and selling merch myself, and we fundamentally believe that artists can be making more money selling merchandise at concerts if it was better managed. So we've built a mobile web platform that is used by artists, tour managers, merch reps, merch companies, record labels, venues, and festivals to manage all the logistics, from how much inventory do I have in my trailer, how much is in the warehouse, how much is being shipped, how much have I ordered, the settlements between the artist and the venue. There's a full accounting package and financial package in the back end that tracks your cost of goods. So I can go in and look at, in real time and with full transparency, how's my tour doing to date? Are we cash flow positive in our merchandise business? That shirt's not selling as well as we thought. Let's drop the price a little bit. So it gives me a dashboard and analytics so that I can better manage the merchandise that I'm selling out there on the road. We also have a deal in place with SoundScry. So if you're selling music at your shows, we can automatically, love them or hate them, we can pull the sales data from your venue sales and submit them directly into SoundScry as well, so you're not missing those sales. Yeah, that's the take.
Wonderful. So next we have Casey Fox from Eventbrite. I'm sure everyone here knows Eventbrite, but Casey, I'd love for you to talk about how artists can really use your platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure a lot of you here in the audience today know Eventbrite as an online ticketing and registration platform, and that's definitely true. We help event organizers, big and small, across industries sell and promote their tickets. But at the same time, we have this growing community of people who are searching for live experiences, fun and interesting things to do in the cities where they live. And so because of this dynamic between event organizers as well as attendees, we like to think of ourselves as a live experience marketplace. And we are a horizontal platform, but music is one of our fastest growing segments. Last year alone, we ticketed 60,000 concerts. And when we kind of went into the data and looked like who was using this self-service platform for music concerts, we found that 1 in 3 of our music event organizers are actually artists and musicians themselves. So they're not only ticketing these events, but they're performing as well. So I'm excited to kind of dive in to give examples of how these DIY artists are using the platform.
Awesome. I can kind of already guess the answer because I understand there's a lot of privacy issues, but so much of that information goes to promoters and venues and things like that. If an artist is headlining a show, is there a way for, me as a fan to opt in so it's okay for the artist to have my information?
Yeah, absolutely. We make it really transparent on both sides, and all the data is accessible anytime, anywhere for those artists.
So if I have a band playing the 9:30 Club, a fan can opt in and my artist will get that info? Mm-hmm. Amazing. Very cool. Up next, we have Craig Swann from looplabs.
Hello. So looplabs is really it's a cloud-based collaborative music creation platform. Simply, it's kind of like a Google Docs for music, or I like to say if YouTube and GarageBand had sex, it'd probably be close to what we're doing. I've been in this space a long time, so I might be the resident geek on this panel. But we've seen, with what blogging has done for writers, what YouTube has done for creative people with video, what Instagram's done for people with photography, that music expression really has been underserved. And so we spend a lot of time in that space, from allowing people to create music easily through this browser-based platform, but also done a lot of interesting stuff working with artists from, Kesha to Bob Dylan in terms of the way to engage fans with the idea of a remix culture of being able to recreate and reimagine tracks and co-create with artists. We think there's a lot of potential in that space.
Can you talk about, what kind of artists are using it to make new recordings? Like how fancy can they get?
So, music is, especially with the, we're losing music programs in school, the idea of music theory or knowledge is being lost on a generation of kids, I think. So a lot of the technology, music is math, and so a lot of this stuff can be solved to make music much more approachable. So we like to look at it as sort of taking away the black keys from the keyboard, so that a kid's first, experience with music is just, it's rewarding, it's harmonic, it sounds good, it doesn't make them feel like I suck. So I think there's a lot of things that technology can do to allow people to sort of embrace music. So we really want to be that next platform so that, as things get more and more entwined with social and collaborative applications in the cloud, we want to be that application for music. So, what a Logic is or an Ableton is, we want to be able to provide those services directly, online. And so it's a new generation of kids, and a big part of it is thus education, because we have a lot of kids that are making music that have no understanding of copyright, that there's 2 copyrights, what is publishing, there's all these, really interesting things that they have to be taught. So we look at, having to serve a role in providing that knowledge as well, and then experimenting with stuff with cryptocurrencies and micropayments, and there's a lot of interesting things, I think, moving forward in that space for how to monetize that, but we may get to that a bit later.
So for the kids and the education component, you said you're just kind of making it sound good? I mean, shouldn't they learn from their mistakes as well?
Sure. So, I mean, it's about, trying to make it so that people that have not performed music or created music or didn't even know they could do it, make it rewarding for them. So certainly a lot of it has to do about making mistakes. We just try to eliminate as much of that as possible for people coming in for the first time. So if you have different pieces of music and samples, we'll do the transposition and make sure that they're in the same key so things don't sound good. You can turn that off if you want. If you're into dissonance and stuff, you certainly can go nuts. But it's more about holding their hands to sort of walk them into the world of music creation and then letting them collaborate and do things the way they feel is creative.
And I assume there's an educational component, so when you do make it sound good for a kid, you're teaching them why. So, I mean, I went through tons of music theory classes as a kid, and it was really helpful, so I just want to make sure they're getting that information. For
sure. So, I mean, I think a lot of that's through, there's the opportunities because we're using sort of these, how would I describe the technologies? I mean, it's a one-to-many so that you can sort of watch someone doing a session, so you could have a producer, walk people through a real-time session, have people watch and learn from that perspective, a lot of video. We're working with the New York Board of Education right now to figure out a way to find ways to augment their curriculum, because we don't want to pretend like we know the right way to do it. We want to empower teachers, because we've had teachers use the platform for many years, and we want to find a way to best augment what they're doing so that we can kind of play a role in proper music theory education.
Great. And then on the completely other end of the spectrum, say I have, the Autumn Defense on the road, which are a couple guys from Wilco, and a song comes in and they're going to compose for a commercial. Is that something they could do from a hotel room?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's a full recording suite, as well as using any kind of sounds that you have of your own, or using a royalty-free bank of sounds that we have. So certainly possible to do that, and we're working with a lot of really top-end producers that are used to traveling, whether they're in Morocco or Miami or LA or New York, and they're using it. We're having top-line sessions with a singer somewhere in a different country. So certainly, from at the very least, a sketch pad, putting stuff together to a finished professional quality song is sort of where we're trying to run the gamut.
Wonderful. And finally, we have Brett Sechrest.
Hi, SoundScry as our startup, and we've basically combined gamification with distribution and fan investing in independent artists. So how we do the fan investing in independent artists, which is the true meat of the platform, is that independent artists come into our platform and they distribute through our platform, and they create a deal where they sell a share of their revenue stream to the fans. So that could look like an independent artist comes in, $10,000, raises $10,000, there's 1,000 fan investors, and they're priced the album at $10, and let's say it's a 50-50 deal. So what happens is every time a transaction is made is through the platform with album sales to start, we're gonna be adding in multiple revenue streams, that immediately gets split per the deal, in that case, the 50% split. So we enclose the platform so it's all on a real-time basis, and we have real low auditing costs, real low legal costs, and a really good governance. So it's very trust and transparent. We also provide a gamification platform, which is also about discovery. And this platform is live now. We're in various forms of beta. And what happens is that fans get 100 chips, and they basically drag and drop their albums into their game platform and explore that music by creating action, which drives great analytics for the artists. And as sales happen, the fans win prizes. In this case, free downloads, cash. But that's sort of to get fans used to the idea of investing if they're not already invested into the music. So the artists control their copyrights. The artists are just sharing a share of the revenue only from our site and on a non-exclusive basis.
Great. So we're going to go in the reverse order now. And I consider both Brett and Craig's platforms a little newer, although you might have been around a while and I didn't know about it. So Brett, what I'd like to know is, like, how do you stand apart from, say, Kickstarter and other crowdfunding platforms? Because you're ultimately engaging with the fan to help push the artist.
Well, yeah, well, exactly. Kickstarter is a gift crowdfunding platform, so coffee cups, T-shirts, signed guitars, right? And a lot of things that happen within that platform, I mean, are really great. Engages fans to a degree, except that there's sort of a ceiling for how much you can sort of acquire, I guess. But that has a problem for artists, and as well as sometimes they're not very good at basically product procurement, right, and wholesale pricing. And so sometimes 60 to 70% of their budget is taken up by making good on the promises that they made. So and also it doesn't drive you as becoming an owner. We're really focused on ownership and the value of ownership. And in the sense of, 100 years ago when 90% of the people were owners in this country, it was a different type of country. So we're trying to drive back that value. And the way we do it is through our platform and with music.
And Craig, what sets Loop Labs apart from other, recording software that artists can travel with?
Well, I mean, primarily the fact that it's free, it's online, and it's collaborative, I think sets us apart from, the traditional, whether you're using a Fruity Loops or Logic or GarageBand. There's either a hardware, necessary requirement to get involved, or the software is, expensive. A lot of what we're doing is about reaching not just people that are in this room or in this country, but really this is a global thing. Music is, the international language. We're working very hard to find ways to provide tools to make music for emerging markets, Latin markets. We just came back from an orphanage in the Dominican Republic where we put in a little studio, and these kids really had almost never even used computers. So to sit down with them and show them this technology was a wonderful experience for us to figure out how will this next generation of sort of digital kids grow up with it. But I think broadly it's more, we see music being underserved from a format perspective, because music has always relied on formats. It was always, from the vinyl to the cassette to the CD, and then things dropped off as soon as you hit the MP3. They didn't own the format. Well, I mean, CD technically didn't own, but there's a loss of control. And if you look at really the two graphs between the music industry from the 80s to now, and you compare that to what's happened in the video game and app market, you see a complete switch. And it's because computers allowed people to be interactive and to create experiences that were immersive, and music sort of really has dropped that ball. So I think what we're trying to do, which differentiates us, is find a way to make music an interactive experience and open up music in a way that it hasn't been experienced before, because now we used to have, Walkmans, and music owned the portability space where if you were waiting in a line somewhere, only thing you could really do would be listen to music. Now we have these smartphones where our attention, we have to give up between notifications, social stuff, apps, watching video content, that music is competing for our attention in this new format. I think without it being interactive, it doesn't have a chance to really compete. So I think that's what differentiates, at least the way that we look at it, and what we think is the future of music creation and experience.
Wonderful. So Casey, I think almost everyone here knows Eventbrite, but what's, kind of the latest and greatest element of the platform that you guys have been working on, either now or, if you can talk about things you guys are working on?
Yeah, absolutely. Recently, in September of this past year, we launched a new app called Eventbrite Neon. And this is basically a mobile box office command center where you can sell tickets, you can track sales, you can even check in attendees at the door. And the data piece is really interesting, and that's kind of the sweet sauce for all of our emerging artists who are using the platform. You can track at the geographic level where your fans are, where they're buying tickets. You can see ticket sales over time. You can identify, of all the different marketing promotional tools that you're doing, what's really resonating with this fan base. And you can all control this at the touch of your phone.
Wonderful. And AtVenu might be new to some of you, but what are some of the latest and greatest elements of AtVenu?
The latest and greatest elements. We launched, it'll be 2 years in January, and we have about 1,600 professional touring musicians using the platform. We've settled 40,000 shows, and about $130 million of merchandise have gone through the platform. And we have our crew of merch reps out there touring the world, using our software and application. And without getting into the weeds on how tour merchandise works, at every concert you have to do a settlement with the venue because they get a percentage of your sales. And there's always this redundant activity of I'm the venue and I'm the artist, and we both do our count in and count outs, and we try and agree, and someone's broken Excel spreadsheet, so now we're off by $50, and we're there until 2 in the morning trying to find $50. So the venue said, I want that app. And so we said, cool, we'll build you that app. And so we built a version of AtVenu that the venue representative can use. And once we did that, a lot of those venue representatives manage the merchandise at festivals. So then we built a festival version of the application. And so that allowed us to expand the platform beyond just the artist side of the merch table. And that was very exciting because now we have an opportunity to advance shows when it comes to merchandise between the venue and the artist. You can link your account if you want to make sure that we agree on counts. And maybe I don't see his counts, but we get a little yellow exclamation point that says, we're off here, so catch it now. Go recount that, not at 2 in the morning. So we're finding ways to just expand into these different, all the different stakeholders around touring merch. And then what we're about to release actually next month is what we're calling Merch IQ. And Merch IQ is powered by the data set that we have now behind tour merchandise. And so while we certainly cannot publicize and share any of the data specific to an artist, it is anonymous and aggregate in our back end. So if you're planning a tour, we know that the average dollars per head for artists in your genre at this venue is X. Wow. So maybe you want to plan on bringing in more t-shirts to the venue, because the way you're tracking it right now, you're about 50 cents below the average. So now when you plan your tour, we can dig into our database and say, for similar artists, this is how much merchandise you should take with you on the road. This is our averages, this is what we know. It's your call whether or not you want to follow that, but at least for so many artists, especially if they're touring in a new market, it gives them an idea. Once you have that tour plan set, as you settle up each one of your shows, we track all of that and see how you're doing based to plan and forecast what your needs are going to be to finish out the tour. And the goal here is that, one, and this was part of the inspiration of AtVenu for me, was that you never get a phone call as a manager that said, we just ran out of smalls. It's like, like, awesome, and you just ran out of a bunch of money then, great. So to avoid running out of merchandise, but also what a lot of people don't focus on is coming back with too much. Mm-hmm. And that's, you over order halfway through a tour, and then you have a bunch of t-shirts sitting in your garage. So those are some of the big things that we're doing right now, is evaluating, now that we have a large enough data set, evaluating the data around touring merchandise so that these bands can maximize their revenue. Because when you're there, that is your key and most critical opportunity to monetize your fan base. And as a manager with a previous manager with developing artists, it's awesome all the tools we have for distribution, but my bands, we lived off of ticket and merch sales. That was it. That was the only revenue we can count on, ticket and merch sales. So we want to make sure that they're maximizing that as much as possible.
That's so great. I love how you're digitizing a physical good. It's really incredible.
And there's challenges to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about bands in town and what's going on there?
Well, one of the newer tools within the Bands in Town platform we launched earlier this year is a tool that now allows people, like say a promoter, to reach all the users within our platform. We have 14 million users. We know where those users live, what kind of music they're listening to, how often they're listening to each of those bands, and we happen to have their email address since we're sending them automated alerts. So rather than doing an automated alert, we've recently put together a deal where promoters, when they have a show coming up, they can come to us and say, we have a Bon Jovi show, and we want to reach Bon Jovi fans and 5 bands that sound similar to them. And then through that, we put together a campaign. They tell us how many fans they want to reach. They send us artwork. We all work and come up with an approved email template, and then we can email out to exactly the number of fans that they want in the exact region that they're looking to reach them in. And we've seen a massive uptick in that through both clubs, large venues, and festivals, because it's just a much higher level way to reach fans to alert them on a show. And then really, really recently, we've started to have labels seeing how well this is working to activate people for live events, and labels have been working with us to target the fans of bands for an album launch. And you know, one of the interesting things with the Bands in Town platform is, since we're tracking if you're just listening to a band, we immediately add you to a list and know you like them. So as a whole, we tend to, with the platform, have more users tracking a band. A tracker is kind of our key metric that we call a fan. But we tend to have more trackers for each artist than any artist has on their email list. So for a label coming to us, we've been on a couple of campaigns recently where they're seeing 30 to 40% open rates, which is as big or bigger than a band's email list because it's more active and current. And it's just an amazing way for a label then to reach the right fans.
So, you know, take us through the process if you're an individual artist and how Bands in Town is helpful.
Okay. As an individual artist, the first thing that you want to do is install this app on your Facebook page and your website. And even if you don't want this tool on your Facebook page, there's some people who maybe you want to use Facebook native events, maybe you want to use the only somewhat legitimate competitor that's out there. But regardless, you want to interact with the platform and install the app into your Facebook account, because it then gives you a dashboard to control all your tour dates that go through the Bands in Town ecosystem. And within that, there's settings such as one that I was just talking to Emily about that she wasn't aware of, where you can block tour dates from going into that system. So say a promoter creates a show that isn't legitimate. You can get an alert that a show is added and then have the ability to either approve that show or delete it, or contact the person who's promoting a show that doesn't actually exist. And that happens very rarely, but what tends to happen often as a manager is a promoter will post a show before they have permission to post it. And you may have, you know, very set on sale time. Our tour is going on sale at 10 a.m. Saturday. We don't want any dates leaking before then. And the great thing is, I'll see it in queue that says, publish this date, and it means that that date is already in the Ticketmaster or Ticketfly or Eventbrite system. So from there, I can call the promoter and say, take the show down now. So it really gives you a window into what's going on with your tour dates everywhere, because it's impossible to chase and follow every promoter out there.
And how does the revenue work, both for you and for the artists on Bands in Town?
For the artists, there isn't a revenue stream for the artists, but the revenue stream for the artists is they, you know, hopefully are drawing more people to their concerts and making more money because more people are buying tickets because they're alerted. Our revenue stream is built around the email advertising platform where promoters are paying us 5 cents an email to reach these users. We also recently acquired a mobile advertising network who also represents inventory on some of the largest music websites. And we have a separate company called Bands in Town Amplified. And within that company, we're doing targeted display ads as well.
Very cool. I have a quick follow-up question for you, Ben. When you were talking about how you can kind of project to like-minded artists, how is that determined? Like, where is that information being pulled from?
Well, right now we're dependent on genre base, and a lot of artists in our platform skip that step. And so what we do is we pull an API out of iTunes and match it. So if you're an artist, if you're an artist that is selling music in iTunes and you have a genre set there, then we can marry that into our system as well. And then we look at, are you, when you save the tour dates within our system, are you headlining or support, or is this a festival show? So that gives us parameters on how to forecast and project your inventory needs as well. Then we look at what venues are you performing in. Are you playing in 500 capacity, 2,000 capacity, or sheds? And then that, because obviously that has a determination as well. So we can say, okay, of everything that we know, artists of this genre that have played in this venue at this size in a support slot, it typically does this type of revenue.
Got it. And how much does your service cost? Because it's obviously not a revenue stream.
No, it's not a revenue stream. So we just do a flat, depending on the package, there's a couple of different packages you can choose from. It's a flat $10, $50, or $90 per artist per touring month.
Okay. Are there deals for, business managers? I think this is an incredibly useful tool for them.
We have, so that's typically our model. And again, it's just, it's per touring month. So the account is always active. We just charge you for the month that you tour. So if you use it 1 month and you're off for 11, you pay me $50 and you're good, We have enterprise deals with organizations, so management companies or merch companies that have migrated their entire roster onto AtVenu and uses our suite of tools for all of the back office accounting, financials. We track the taxes and whether the venue retained it or the artist retained it at each one of the shows. So there's a whole suite of tools, and that's on a case-by-case basis depending on the size of the roster and the needs.
Got it.
Yeah.
And Casey, you guys are also not a direct revenue stream, but how do you make money?
Yes, so I think before I answer that and get into the weeds of how we make money, I want to touch a little bit on some research that we did around live experiences and live events and their increasing importance to revenue streams for artists in particular. We did a piece of research that said 78% of millennials, so these are folks who are 18 to 34, right in their spending prime right now, 78% of them would rather spend money on a live experience than a desirable thing. And that's pretty compelling data that suggests that live experiences are going to continue to grow in the foreseeable future and will continue to be a direct source of revenue for artists. And for DIY artists who choose their own ticketing platforms, such as Eventbrite, we provide direct access to that revenue. We do take a small transaction fee for every ticket that's sold. If you go to eventbrite.com/fees, you'll see everything you need to know about the fee that we charge. And if you have a free event online, you just want to track registration from your fans, that's 100% free. We don't take anything off of those.
Great. And Craig, I assume there's a fee to use your platform as well as some potential revenue?
So I'm also, I'm not wearing my tie today, but I'm also a big hippie, right? So the idea for this doesn't come from that place. There's certainly no shortage of opportunities. So, we know that people spend, 35 minutes per visit on the platform, which is almost rivals Facebook's per day. So if we ever wanted to do advertising, we could certainly do that. But one of the things, as we see more and more artists, especially with electronic music, that they make their money from the shows. They're not making money necessarily from the actual tracks. So they see the opportunity of, if I can engage my fans in a way that's interactive and intimate by, remixing my music, and then they're becoming my digital street team by promoting it, it's big for me. But we've also learned that the people that are doing this also have this, emotion has kind of been stripped away from music when it's not been experiential, where you would go to a record store, you'd get it. A lot of that stuff's been taken away where, I can download the entire collection of the Beatles on a cold piece of metal, and the value's kind of been taken away for a lot of the digital generation. But we found that when it is interactive and when people can co-create and create something on their own with another artist's music, now it's my track, it's not the artist, and they want to take that with them. And they don't seem to have a problem paying for the music when it's their music that they've co-created. So certainly there's an opportunity, we think, for artists to be able to monetize that in terms of these sort of derivative creations that are done. But it's a marketplace. People need sounds to make music. There's a lot of opportunities that I really won't go into right now, but for people to create new interactive products through music that they can allow other people to use and leverage. And we think that's going to be a big part of the platform moving forward. But we just want everyone to start using it. That's really the first and foremost thing for us.
So how do you guys make money?
Again, it's, the platform's been used a lot. I mean, this has been around for a while. I mean, 2001 was when I first developed the technology. I mean, it's been around for a while, so it's been licensed a lot. So there's a lot of brands that see the opportunity. So as we see a lot more brands, coming and finding ways to work with music, that's one of the places that we've really been focused for the last 5 to 10 years, where they want these, interactive campaigns on a national level that can reach their demographic, but also get a cool factor with music. So certainly, we're seeing lots of direct opportunities with regards to brands that want to tie themselves or affiliate with an artist, where they're willing to pay for that affiliation. They get tied to a music product. We're the conduit to do that. So obviously, there's a play from a platform perspective. But again, there's just so many opportunities when building a platform for people to use different services, different quality of sounds that, whether it's subscription services, whether it's purchasing of content, there's no shortage of ways for us to monetize it. We're just not focused on that right now.
And when artists create something on your platform, is there a way to distribute directly, whether it's direct to fan through the artist's website? Is there a way to get on digital retail and streaming platforms automatically?
Right, so we're not focused so much on them, throwing this through, iTunes or distributing it through any other networks. Primarily because, even when we talk internally about do we want people to share this directly to SoundCloud, no, because SoundCloud is a dead end for that music. There's no opportunity to remix it. When you make your track and you post it to Facebook or Twitter or Tumblr, every time that player is there, there's a huge remix button which opens up, a studio that you can really easily, modify that and create it your own. So that's a big part of it. So we anticipate being that distribution platform for them to do that. But that comes back to that whole education thing about what happens when you publish a piece of music and the opportunities that we have to work with publishing companies, because we don't really want to become a publishing company. We don't want to become a label, but by default, we are enabling these things to happen. So these are a lot of the conversations that we're having with our partners right now with regards to how do we fulfill this and do it properly so that the next generation of kids have an appreciation for their own music, that it has a value, that it has to be protected, that all these things exist in the ecosystem.
Right. So the big goal is to kind of keep people on the platform, but how does an artist spread the word? I'm sure there's a pretty obvious social element.
Right. So I mean, people always ask, well, how are you going to market the platform when you relaunch it? And working with a lot of top artists that have tens of millions of followers on different social networks that understand this as a potential future of music, they become the way to expose this to the masses in a level where they can at least be aware of it. But again, when people are recreating content from an artist, they're becoming the new digital street team. Because the other thing we've learned is when someone makes a piece of music and remix a track, they want to share it. So now they're sharing this, and it becomes a way to expose the music for the artist to a whole range of networks outside of their direct fans, because people are interested in hearing something that their friend made, even if they're not familiar with the artist. So from a promotional and a marketing perspective, we think it's massive in terms of empowering this sort of digital street team, as we like to think of them. And
how do you retain that digital street team? How do you stay in touch with them?
I mean, we have our own social fabric. We have our own social, there's profiles, there's it's collaborative, right? So we have everything from chatting to, collaborative music making to profiles to the following. It's a social network of its own where people can, stay in touch there. So you have a constant stream of activity that's on our site, which is like a sound stream. And here's all the new content being created across different filters, different tags, different friends, different groups, etc. So we work hard to maintain the people there because it's a very rich and diverse community of creators.
Cool. So Brett, tell us about your revenue plan.
So for SoundScry itself, we take 15% of every album sale, so that's 85% for the artist. And then every time an artist raises money through our platform, if they meet their goals, for instance, $10,000, we also take 15% of that. And that $8,500 in that case would go directly to the artist. That doesn't have to be paid back. So it's in their pocket, they keep it. So that's where we start, and we have 7 other revenue streams that we'll be adding on, and ultimately we get paid when the artist gets paid.
Can you talk about those revenue streams yet? That's okay.
Yeah, no, I'm just,
okay.
Not really.
So the 15% comes out of the artist's share, but not the fan's share?
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's on the raise, right? So,
right.
Yeah, because they're getting full value for that 50%, right? The fans are.
Yeah, well, the artist isn't, but.
Well, but, somebody has to pay.
Yeah, and it's the artist. So you guys also have your own marketplace where the fans can buy music?
Yes, we have our own store, for instance.
Okay, and does it publish elsewhere as well, or are people just buying? And you said it's just downloads right now, but is it okay to say you're working on streaming?
Yes, it's
okay
to say that we're working on streaming. And to your point on the just the artist always pays, there is a lot of securities law that we have to abide by, so we have to derive the full value of that share within the law. So that's the sort of the context of it. So we have a lot of states that we have to abide by that have very succinct laws. And so a lot of abiding by what we are creating here is this really robust platform, but we do have a big regulatory component to it.
So the fans, buy in from your marketplace. What quality files are they getting in return?
For the fans?
Yeah.
That's right. It's 160, 320 OGG and got MP3 right now.
Okay.
So we would like to add like Neil Young's new Pono and that kind of stuff later.
So Wave and lossless and things like that.
Well, that's what we have in our uploads. But if you really want the Wave, you want the lossless, you can have it. But we were just going to sort of wait for the Pono right now. But we do the MP3 160, 320, and the OGG is similar. Right?
Okay. So Randy, you're a manager.
Yep.
What do you think about all this? Are you learning some new things that you think your artists can use?
It's interesting because I forget your name, but for your creating sound, recording music, for my artists, it's one of the areas I kind of stay out of. I try to tell them how to market their bands, the right people to tour with, and those kinds of things. But I stay away from, you should play this guitar, you should use this recording platform. If I hear something interesting, I may have a conversation and mention it to them, but I kind of stay out of that type of area. In Eventbrite, we tend to not ticket our own events. Very occasionally, there's a unique situation where we get to ticket an event, and their ticketing platform that I like, I'm a fan of what they're building. I've spoken to promoters who use it and love it, and it's a unique platform for sure, and pushing the limits. And then as far as SoundScry, it's really interesting. I love the concept of it. I'm concerned on how some of it's executed. The biggest question to me is where people want to consume music, where they're comfortable with consuming it. And if you put it in one ecosystem, it makes it a little bit more difficult to get your hands on it, because if I'm an iTunes listener, I'm somehow still an iTunes listener. Slowly they're shifting to, the streaming services, but if you consume on streaming, you're most likely only consuming on streaming.
Well, to your point real quick, is that it's a non-exclusive platform, so artists can still go anywhere else and promote through iTunes or wherever else they want to go to.
Okay, that's key.
So the idea around the platform itself is to control distribution, and that gives us more flexibility with pricing, more flexibility for more money for the fans and the artist later on down the road as we get to scale. So within that context. So.
And are you sharing the fan email addresses with each artist?
With artists?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have if you can imagine what's happening with the analytics here. I mean, within the game, you're adding a band to your portfolio, an album, and when you invest in a band, right? When you invest in their album, that drives extremely valuable analytics. I mean, somebody who's invested into you. Now, that's all comes on to there's a whole suite of analytics for the artist to benefit from. Now, we talk a lot about touring, and how valuable is it to know that you have 700 or 1,000 investors sitting in Mobile, Alabama, right? How are they going to show up? Probably pretty more likely, yeah.
Yeah. So, Randy, what platforms are you and your artists using that aren't represented on today's panel?
It's a lot of the standard platforms, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, Bandpage, Bands in Town. For me, the biggest thing I look at is what platforms are working for other artists and replicate it for my own artists. One of the things that I've found that when I get a moment to speak on panels like this that I like to mention is you have a lot of companies who, actually none of them up here are like this, but who do the circuit of just pitching their product on every panel anytime they're in front of developing artists. And I almost consider them in my mind predatory artist services. They're companies where they're looking for young artists who want to break, and they'll pay anything to get on those platforms. And I'm sure everyone knows the names of a lot of these. And artists should be really careful and look to work with the platforms that existing artists are using who aren't paying for it, and you shouldn't be paying for it too, and they're making their revenue through other areas. So, it kind of doesn't say who I am using, but, it's really important to stay away from a lot of those kind of platforms because they offer very little. A few of them offer a couple of cool niche things, but be very wary of those.
So let's break that down for today's panel from the artist perspective. So Bands in Town is free for the artist.
Correct.
There is a fee for AtVenu, although, you know, it is my opinion that it is useful, but I think you need to look at your merch sales. You know, if you're selling a lot of merch, it's a useful tool. If you're a songwriter sitting at home and don't sell merch, then
Yeah, and
not
for the
really
record,
you.
I pay to use AtVenu. I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay for any services.
And
I
he's an investor.
yeah,
And
I'm involved in the company
Yeah.
and I pay for it too.
Casey, it's free for, yeah, free, and rev share. Yeah, wonderful. So you three in particular, as well as Bands in Town, are all consumer-facing platforms. How easy is it, and we'll start with Bands in Town, to integrate Bands in Town into an artist's website?
As far as integrating to an artist website, it's incredibly easy. The artists who are using them, we have 250,000 artists using the platform. Each one of those artists installs the app initially on their Facebook page. From there, you have a Facebook dashboard where you can control your whole Bands in Town ecosystem. And one of the options in the dashboard in there is just a short little JavaScript code that you plug into your page, and immediately the tour dates populate there. And we automatically read the CSS on the page and know exactly what colors to color it to make it fit your page. And then if you don't like what we did, you can alter it as well. But it's, if you know how to do basic web design, it's, you know, a 5-minute process or less.
Or you have someone who knows how to do basic.
Yeah, I have other people who do it. I don't know how to do it.
And Casey, how does Eventbrite integrate into artists' web pages?
Yeah, we have tons of API integrations with Eventbrite. We have a partnership with WordPress, so if you currently have your band's website on that platform, it's a really easy integration. Similar Facebook, if you have a fan page on Facebook, you can have an Eventbrite tab that shows when you're touring. We have partnerships with MailChimp, so when you want to send emails to your fans, that's a really easy integration as well as SurveyMonkey. And then on the social sharing piece as well, I want to piggyback off of something that Craig was talking about, the digital street team idea. We found that turning artist fans into promoters themselves is actually really lucrative for them. We did a study looking at different social channels, Facebook, Twitter, to see, you know, what's kind of the revenue impact when a fan shares your event. And we found that for every time a fan shares your event on Facebook, it generates $4.15 back to the artist, and you get 14 incremental page views of that event. So it's really important for artists to activate their fans network to reach incremental fans that way as well.
Great. And Craig, how does it work on your end?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a day where everything should be super easy, so I mean, I don't even think you need to have any skills. It should be just copy and paste or add in an existing ecosystem, an app or what have you, so we make everything as easy as possible, as frictionless as possible. Great.
And how do artists integrate on your end? Do they have to go to the platform, or how do they get it on the site?
Right now, they go to the platform, and it's obviously free to sign up, and they just input all their data, right? So they just create a profile for the basic.
Great.
And then we have lots of APIs and stuff to make this easier as we go along, and there's a lot of things going on in the back end.
Got it. So I definitely want to leave some time for questions and give you guys a chance for some final thoughts on kind of how your platform, you know, integrates into the artist's larger revenue model and, you know, their career as a whole to help make it sustainable. So how about Bands in Town, Randy?
On the Bands in Town front, ultimately touring has been and still is the largest income streamer for 99% of the artists out there. And you need to have tools out there to promote your touring and make sure you're using every possible tool to alert as many fans as possible to come out to your shows. I mean, it's kind of no-brainer. Your career as an artist, most of the time, it's selling T-shirts and selling concert tickets. You know, I've been an artist manager for 15 years now, and I think I've seen royalties for one band over the course of that time in my entire career. And I've bought a home and raised a family off of selling T-shirts and concert tickets. So it's very important to focus on those platforms, specifically with Bands in Town, to just drive the people to your shows so that then you can work with Ben to sell your merch.
Awesome.
Go
ahead, Ben.
Yeah, so don't neglect your merchandise. You know, it's such a laborious, antiquated, difficult pain of a process to manage. So a lot of, you know, you want to perform. You want to perform in front of people. You want to, you know, have people in front of you. And that's terrific. If you really do want to have the opportunity to turn this into a career and have some revenue, you have to remember that you are, if you want to do this as a career, you are a business. So you have to find ways to manage your revenue. And merchandise is a critical component of that, which most artists just neglect because it's tough, And so we've built an application that streamlines the entire process, holds your data, keeps account of everything, so that if you have any team members back at home, they can log in and pull the information they need to make sure you're supported while you're out there doing your job of performing on the road. Whether that be the guy that supplies your merchandise, or the girl running, everything else for you because she's your manager essentially, and you're starting off as a band. It's you have to pull the resources where you can find them. And, as Randy mentioned, merchandise is one of those, forgotten pieces of the puzzle, but it's so critical when it comes to the entire revenue stream. And with, the revenue stream shifting in our industry with, content going down, as you mentioned earlier, live event is going up. And, there's two opportunities right now to monetize that, and that's tickets and t-shirts.
Great. And Casey, how does Eventbrite plug into the artist's bigger picture plan and strategy?
Absolutely. I would definitely echo everything that's already been said about the importance of live experiences. And I think the unique thing about Eventbrite is that we are a horizontal platform. So we're not just into music, we're into everything else that you as a fan and a consumer are into. We know that you like beer and wine festivals, as well as concerts, as well as cooking classes. And because we have this really robust profile of who the fans are, we can help artists push their music out to people who are going to love them. And so then they can continue to share their craft with these new fans.
Wonderful. Craig?
More of the same, but I think, the social music experience that we used to have with the records on the floor and that whole getting together and sharing music, those days are over in that sense. And like we're talking about, it's about this experience. And so we see this increase in live experience, and we see these massive festivals where people come together, and that harks on my old, Grateful Dead days with these huge 100,000 people getting together on music. But we do see people getting together playing video games. And so, we're just seeing that there's an opportunity to be able to tie in that social aspect of connecting and sharing and creating together, but not necessarily a video game, but music, and finding ways to make music more like a video game so people can have those experiences that might not be offline, but online in a way that's fun and creative.
Great. And Brett, is your platform limited just to artist recordings, or can fans invest in shows and other revenue streams?
Well, right now it's just recordings, but yes, that's the goal is to add multiple revenue streams that the artists can choose whether they want the fan to invest in that included in the package. So therefore to potentially raise a lot more money. Mm-hmm. But we're trying to, what we like to do is to get rid of sort of the scarcity models and create a platform that has a lot more abundance for a lot more people. And also in the sense of just, when a label's taking 90 or 100% of basically your album sales and your streaming, and you rely on ticket sales and everything else to boost it up, we're creating a platform where it doesn't have to be that way. And that's a place to start, and you can grow your career through that platform. And then later on, you have another place to go where you can use the power of that platform to, if you want to go with a label, and create a better deal for yourself, right? Or don't. Right? So.
Are you planning on working with labels at all, or just artists who are unsigned and DIY artists?
Well, they can. They can work within the system, and there's probably a lot of flexibility there is a lot of flexibility for managers, promoters, and labels. But that's sort of on the deal that they cut with the artists, right?
Absolutely. All right, well, I'd love to open it up to you guys. There's a microphone there, and you can ask all these platforms questions directly. All right. Hi.
I have a question for Casey. Is it possible to make a horizontal connection in Eventbrite for, say, all my fans are going to a yoga class with their Eventbrite login and then buying my tickets? Is that possible?
Yes, absolutely. Cool. And as we continue to kind of grow this marketplace and have this community of people looking to find fun and interesting things to do in the cities they live in, we'll refine that over time and be able to serve up really targeted meaningful content for them and events that they would love to go to.
Cool.
And what's your name?
Justin.
Are you an artist?
Yes.
Okay, what, Justin?
Zupnik.
Okay. Is that
And
what people should
and
check
I
out?
I run a startup, but
Okay. What's your startup?
spaces.fm.
Awesome.
Check it out.
Hi, this is for Craig. I'm a former educator. I still educate, but a former public school teacher. But I was very interested in some of the stuff you were talking about in terms of education. As someone who currently teaches music to independent students, teaches recording on occasion, how do you connect with some of these educators? Like you told about your work in the Dominican Republic. You talked about working with educators. Do you work with them connecting through like the local school boards or like private schools or other companies in between? And I'm curious how people would get involved with what you do.
Fantastic. So a lot of it has just come from receiving emails from teachers saying, hey, guess what, this thing's awesome, we're using it in the classroom, I'm using it to teach arrangement or composition or, a free tool that we don't have in the labs that we can put on there. So a lot of it's been that way. As a result of that, we see obviously there's a huge value that we can add as a platform, and so we're doing our best to try to do reach out. So if anyone is an educator, we'd love to talk to you because we want to try to do some test pilots of working with an orphanage in Dominican, but maybe with a classroom in New York City and have them collaborate and do stuff together. So we have reached out to the New York Board of Education to try to find ways to work with that, because we want to facilitate how can this work in the classroom best. Do we want a group passwords? How do we do this so I can monitor the work? So those things we want to try to tie into it. So certainly would love to talk to you about finding a way to have you test it out with us and anyone else, because that's a big part of what we're trying to do.
Very cool. Yeah, because I do still teach individually, but I know a lot of other people who do as well. And I'll just say, because I know you're going to ask, my name is Howard Rayback. I'm also a local session bassist, but I also produce and teach and do some other things. So I'll hopefully hook up with you later. Thank you.
Thanks, Howard. Go ahead.
I guess my question is with community radio. I hear so much of this as, of course, being the platform of online, but community radio has also been kind of the force that's supported independent music for so long. And I feel like that voice is kind of missing outside of maybe, an NPR, which is more of a national network. So how are you planning on integrating that? Like, do you bring it up? That, hey, we got this ticket giveaway going on, and we're going to make a studio appearance. Are you connecting with all these new grassroots internet-based stations? There's East Village Radio now that's folded, which is very powerful. In New York, we have Newtown Radio. We have our station, Clock Tower Radio. We have a new one called No Wave Radio. I mean, there's so many. But I feel like we're struggling trying to support, but we're trying to see where that support reciprocates in growing our kind of continuing support as a grassroots radio kind of
Well,
network.
I'd say you could run events through Eventbrite. And, Randy, what are some of your artists doing to engage with radio on all levels?
As far as radio, it becomes the platform, whether it's radio or tech, it really doesn't matter to me as a manager anymore. It's the platform that's going to reach the most fans, that's going to get me to either sell more tickets or sell more records or whatever our desired goal is. I mean, there's always, like community radio that's doing something special. If it's your community, you're more likely to prop them up because it's local, it's easy, you can stop by there. But once you're out on tour and you're trying to figure out who to work with, you really, as a manager wearing that hat, I'm looking for what's going to get me the greatest reach. And occasionally you do what you can to help those other things, but it's, unfortunately being a band, you're a business, and I act as the CEO of the band's business, and it's what's going to get us the best reach at the best moment in time. And then secondarily, it's how can we support great products, great services, just great people who are doing great things to help people.
We really try to make sure our artists engage with radio stations of all levels. So whether they're thanking DJs on Twitter, and individual stations and things like that, that's something we do. But, if you reach out to us, if we have an artist coming to town and you want, tickets for a giveaway and things like that, we're going to say yes. So the more you can kind of engage with managers for the artists that you guys are supporting, that's a great way to build a partnership.
Okay, I guess my question is, does it then get posted within your touring and your world as...
You ask,
Yeah.
quite often we will.
And it's just going to, Randy's a very hands-on manager, so it just depends on, the managers and the artists that you're working with.
And then a quick question with sample, your sample lab? I'm
Looplabs?
sorry, Loop Lab. The person that does the remix, do they get a share afterwards too? Because that was something that actually used to not exist in the old model. Myself as a remixer, I don't share in that revenue except for maybe the initial one-time fee of doing it.
And briefly, I think that there's a commonality with sort of the participation with fans there that we believe 100%, regardless of whether the artist, the master recording holder, or the publisher agree with that if someone's creating a new piece of content that can be further monetized, that they should have a piece of that. So, we're still working out those ways. We 100% believe it, even if it means that it's cutting out of our percentage. We think that facilitates people being more creative, and there's more incentive beyond having fun to saying, hey, maybe I can do this amazing electro house version of this new Kanye track, and it's worthwhile them doing it if there is some kind of affiliate element to that. So definitely yes. How it rolls out specifically is there's a lot of people in this industry and everyone has different ideas, but we believe full-heartedly that that's exactly how it should operate.
Great. And
we got to keep moving.
Yeah,
I'm
I just want
sorry.
to say you might want to check out artforprogress.org to get into the New York schools.
All right, thank you.
Cool. We just have a few minutes, so let's try to keep it to one question. Go ahead.
So my question is for Emily and Randy, and it has to do with the role of managers in the industry as the technology is developing and things become more DIY. So how has your job changed recently as a manager with all of this other technology available, so that artists are kind of able to do a lot of things themselves?
Randy?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, a friend of mine, Mike Mowery, who may be sitting in this room, mentioned something last night when we were having dinner, the fact that years ago, a band had a publicist, and that publicist managed the messaging for everything from an artist to their entire fan base. And suddenly, that's drastically changed over the last 6 or 7 years, and now there's countless different platforms that an artist has to communicate with their fans, be it Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then a million others that have, like Pinterest, different things that have different uses for different artists. And some artists are working on some of those platforms, some aren't, and us as managers are quite often supplementing the others, educating the bands on using them, and are suddenly the central point in sending out the message for a band. And it's a drastic change, because instead of planning a tour, you're talking and communicating with fans directly, which has both its pros and cons, for sure.
I just figured it out by trying everything and kind of navigating the weeds. And we also test a lot of things on our assistants and interns, because if they think it's cool and useful, then it's something we really pay attention to. But I kind of had to learn by trial by error.
Okay, thanks.
Trial by fire, rather. Cool. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Debbie Newman. I'm in New York. I'm a consultant and attorney in the digital music space, but I've been in the record business and the music business for a really long time, so not just the only thing I do. I think this has been a great panel and really good people on the panel, so that's a good start for the couple of days. I have a quick question for Craig. You mentioned that you do some work with cryptocurrencies, and I'm interested because I'm basically an idiot in this space, but earlier this year at the musicbiz.org convention, there was a panel that not a lot of people attended with guys from a company called Altavaz, whom I don't really understand what they do, but they're heavily involved in sort of music and cryptocurrency. What exactly are you doing with cryptocurrency, and is there a way for artists to actually get involved and work somehow in this ecosystem of alternate currencies, Bitcoin and others?
Huge topic. Very briefly, we're experimenting with it like everyone else. I think there's two main things. It facilitates micro payments and transfers, because you can, through the blockchain, do a lot of stuff that doesn't require these fees to do stuff for transferring of money. But there's also some really interesting possibilities in terms of using the same technology from not a DRM perspective, but from an ownership perspective, where there's only that one piece of ownership and that could be traded or moved around, so there's some value to a digital format. I think those are really interesting things. I think a lot of people are going to do stuff with it, and we're just trying to figure out some interesting ways of applying that to what we're doing.
Thanks.
Great. Last two questions.
So in relation to a panel I'm participating on later today, I wanted to find out on each of your platforms the percentage of users that are categorized in the genre of jazz, and if it's zero, lie to me.
As far as bands in town, I don't know, but I can tell you that we absolutely have fans in all genres, and there's, I've done a couple of advertising campaigns where I've helped them out, and I know that there's fans there for sure, but I can't tell you whether it's 3%, 5%, or 15%, but there's absolutely a fan base within it.
Definitely less than 0.5%.
But like, how exciting for you, assuming you work in jazz? It's up to people in jazz to bring these platforms to the genre.
Exactly.
Although I will say, if we were to, kind of look at the data set, the jazz musicians definitely sell, if you're looking at, just averages, more music on average than other genres.
For us, number 1 is EDM, number 2 is hip hop, and number 3 is blues and jazz.
Wow, cool.
And we're probably more with 1 and 2, but the interesting thing is that because we allow jazz and classical pieces of music to be used in creations, remixing, we're really working hard to bring that awareness to people so that they can have an appreciation for it.
We won a lot of jazz musicians in our platform. So.
Great, thank you.
And Dave Hurley, my copyright law professor from college.
Hey, Emily, how are you? Yes, and I also have my own law practice in Boston. I have a couple of just quick logistical questions for Casey and for Brett. If you have a show for Casey, like in Boston at a venue, how do you carve out tickets from the venue? Is that a problem, like if you're doing a door deal? That's number 1. Yeah. And then also for Brett, in terms of making payments to people who are contributing to albums or whatever, or projects, how do you deal with like routing information or tax ID numbers? How do you pay people? Is it done electronically? How do you do, and is there a threshold below which you won't pay somebody because it doesn't make sense to go through paying someone a 19th of a penny for something? So those are just sort of wondering how it actually works in the weeds.
Right.
Do you want to go ahead?
No, go first. You go first.
Okay. Yeah, our sales team's on the front lines every day trying to win venues. Before Eventbrite Neon launched, we didn't really have a great comprehensive solution for venues that would allow both online sales as well as at the door. With Neon, we have all the capabilities that a venue would need to ticket all of their events with Eventbrite. So we're excited to see how that goes. Historically, there's usually like a 10% discretionary amount of tickets that are set aside that venues can choose to use Eventbrite with. But beyond that, there are major contracts that lock venues up for years at a time.
Right, and so is there any like app you can use at the door, or do you have to have a paper list? Is it really sort of old-fashioned, or is there some way you can just sort of run your phone by a reader and just walk right in? I'd love to be able to do that, and just wondering how hard it is.
Download Neon.
Yeah, okay.
It's free to download, and you can do everything you just said on your mobile device.
So to your question, we give fans an option. They can take payment at any time or meet the threshold of $100 at PayPal, Dwolla, and then we're also experiencing with cryptocurrencies. Obviously, a cheap platform right now is Dwolla, but it's not very well. Nobody knows about it. But the idea is you don't want to take payments when you're real low because it'll cut into it, right? So we have the same problem. So.
Great. That's all the time we have. All these platforms are on Twitter. They have great customer service, so please check it out.